5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The old saying goes, fathers know best, or father knows best. And speaking as a dad myself, we know that that's not literally always the case. However, when it comes to, in a spiritual sense, there is a lot of truth in that statement. The fathers, our spiritual fathers, they may not always know the best, they may not always be perfect, but they do have wisdom, divine wisdom to share with us. So what have our recent Holy Fathers been telling us and teaching us about our relationship with Jesus Christ? That's what we're going to be talking about today on the show. Welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live from the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into today's topic, we want you to know that we love listener feedback. So if you've got questions about today's episode, if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do so is by email, and the address is
ignition@sfcatholic.org.
What a dramatic telling of the email address, ladies and gentlemen. Ignition@sfcatholic.org is indeed the email address. And that voice, if you're a regular listener, that voice is the voice of, belongs to Renae Kranz. Hey, Renae.
Hey.
Actually, no. If you're a regular listener, I didn't need to tell you that. That's what I should have
Right.
said.
You
If you're a regular
know.
listener, you would know that that's the voice of Renae.
You know the difference between myself and Robin.
You do indeed.
Yes.
So,
We do have different voices.
yes, because
Yeah.
you're different people. So that kind of happens usually.
Yeah.
You know, different people.
Sometimes
different
people
voices.
sound the
I know,
same
that's
or
true.
similar. Yeah.
That's true. Fathers and sons, speaking of today's.
That's true. Yes.
More than once, people have wondered if I'm my
Your
dad.
dad?
on
Oh,
the
yeah.
phone.
I've gotten that.
And now
My mom.
Carl, our son, who's soon to be 18.
Yeah.
You know.
I met Carl
yeah.
very recently, and I I definitely. I could see it.
From the tree.
Yes,
Yep.
it does not.
See it, hear it. It's all there.
The personality.
The best
Poor
things come
kid.
from his mom. Yeah, for sure. So last week, Renae, with Robin,
Okay.
we were talking about the challenge that can come when maybe you have an interaction with a leader in the church, lay, religious, ordained. But specifically, we're talking about what happens when your priest, your pastor, whoever it is, maybe he's a little bit curmudgeonly or grouchy by nature, or he has a bad day and
Right.
you have an interaction with him on the day, or maybe just as, or even more likely, what if he makes a decision that you disagree with? Mm-hmm. What do we do in those situations? That's what Robin and I talked about last week.
I'm glad it was Robin.
That was last week. So that was episode 580 of Ignition, if you want to pull that up. But this is actually an interesting, so there's on the one hand, but on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we were talking, Robin and I talked last week about the importance of being obedient to
Mm-hmm.
proper authority. And we are called to be obedient to our proper spiritual authorities as well.
Right.
As long as they're not telling us to do or trying to get us to believe something that's sinful or false or whatever it is.
Right.
But it is the role of especially church authorities, priests, but especially bishops, including the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, to teach. Jesus told the apostles at the end of Matthew's gospel, "Go therefore make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them." Teaching them to observe, to believe all that I have commanded you.
Right.
So everything that I taught you, I got from the Father.
Right.
And I'm giving you everything that he gave me, the doctrines, the sacraments, what we need to know, how we need to live, everything. And it's your job, Peter, Andrew, James, John, and so on. It's your job to turn around and do that with, well, everybody.
I feel like he should have ended that with, and please don't wreck it.
He didn't need you because he's in charge.
True.
So they can't wreck it. They can.
We give it a good shot, don't we?
They absolutely. So our spiritual authorities. I mean, Scripture is the New Testament's written by many of those men or their right-hand
Right.
men, right?
Right.
So one of the ways in which our spiritual authorities have taught us is in writing. Literally, the inspired Word of God. In the case of people like Peter and John. John's gospel and his letters and Revelation, Peter,
Matthew.
his letters, Matthew was an apostle, exactly, and so on. But even after that, our spiritual authorities have communicated Jesus' teachings in writing. Now, they're not inspired documents the way that the letters and other documents of the New Testament were inspired, but they do seek to tell us things that we need to know about what to believe and how to live our faith out.
Are they still inspired in other ways? I mean, can we say that or no?
They may be, but they might not be.
Okay.
One would hope so that they'd be. Sometimes we say capital T, small t tradition.
Right.
There's capital I
L.
inspired and lowercase I inspired. One would hope, but there's no guarantee that those non-biblical writings are inspired.
Sure.
Now, certainly in many cases there have been incredible. Again, I'm just talking about pastoral letters that bishops can write, but also some of the more formal letters that popes write. Many of them have been very rich, very beautiful, very edifying. They build up our faith. But there's not that guarantee of certainly beauty, and there's not the sort of same guarantee of orthodoxy as there was with Scripture.
Sure. Okay.
Now, you and I have talked before about when it comes to especially popes, our obedience, and we've distinguished levels of teaching. So an offhand aside that a pope makes
on an airplane,
perhaps, does not have the same weight as some of the more formal teaching documents.
Right.
Regardless, this is our spiritual father, and we're called to honor our parents, right? So we should always have honor, and Rob and I talked about this. We should always have honor towards our spiritual authorities and respect, and give them a proper deference.
Right.
So when our popes, to be specific, when our popes write letters for the universal church, we shouldn't just,
Right.
This is our spiritual father, or one of our spiritual fathers, who's writing to us. And we should give that some proper deference. So what I want to do today and next week is look at two documents from this week, one document from Pope Francis. Next week, we're going to look at a document from Pope Benedict XVI.
Okay.
To talk a little bit more about this. Just a little bit back in July and August, Robin and I did a 3-parter looking at a little bit of a document that John Paul II had written at the beginning of the third millennium, Novo Millennium Inuente. And so just kind of along that same idea, I think it's good to, in this case, return to some documents that our popes have written in the relatively recent past, just to be reminded of what they was to be attentive to.
Yeah.
Okay. Clear about what we're going to do?
Sure.
Great. So we're going to start with Pope Francis. What we're going to look at this week is Pope Francis's document, The Joy of the Gospel, or Evangelii Gaudium. Yep. So this is, many people would say that this is the document of Pope Francis's papacy.
Okay.
Pope Francis has written several documents. As we're writing, he just came out with another exhortation, same kind of document as this one, Laudato Deum, at the beginning of August. He's written several formal documents throughout his papacy. Many people would say that The Joy of the Gospel, Evangelii Gaudium, is the one that most speaks to his heart as successor of St. Peter, as Bishop of Rome, as Pope. And I would agree with that sentiment. I really think that this gets to his desire for evangelization, his desire for missionary discipleship. This is maybe, it may not be the longest document of his pontificate, but it's among them. It's one of them because of how important it is to him.
Sure.
One other thing I want to say in terms of sort of prefatory remarks before we get into the beginning of this text, we're just going to look at the beginning of it a little bit. This is an apostolic exhortation. So this is not the highest level of... This is not... Okay, my syntax is a disaster in my head right now. It's not the most... An exhortation is one kind of papal document. It's not the highest level in terms of authority.
Right.
Encyclical letters are higher than exhortations. There is a hierarchy in terms of papal documents, papal teachings. Encyclicals are usually very doctrinal in nature. where he's talking about the Pope, whoever it is talking about some matter of doctrine. Encyclicals are, again, popes have been writing letters for a long time, but the modern form of the encyclical goes back to, I think, the 18th century. For the last 300 years,
yeah.
Popes have been writing encyclical letters on matters of doctrine that are usually addressed especially to their brother bishops.
Oh, okay.
Because they are the ones who have the responsibility of, with popes, teachings.
Right.
Okay. An exhortation is not that. It's a lower. So what Renae Kranz, what do you think is the basic purpose of an exhortation?
My guess would be to encourage people to do something.
Yeah, to exhort them,
Yeah.
perhaps. To encourage, to exhort them to do something. Exactly. So it is, all right, it's dad saying, all right, guys, this is something we need to do. He's not really giving us like the detailed teaching.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you owe the teaching. Now, let's go. Here we go. I'm getting like in a more of a coach vibe here right now. An exhortation. It's an encouragement, as you said. So Pope Francis has written encyclicals, 3 encyclicals, but I would still side with those who see Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel, as the paradigmatic text of his pontificate, of his papacy.
Okay.
So with that, what I want to do is and I don't think we're going to have time to get more than just look at the first couple of articles in this document. I want to we're going to read them and then comment on them. So, Renae, would you mind reading Article 1, which is just a paragraph long, of this first document, of this document, The Joy of the Gospel?
Sure. The joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. Those who accept his offer of salvation are set free from sin, sorrow, inner emptiness, and loneliness. With Christ, joy is constantly born anew. In this exhortation, I wish to encourage the Christian faithful to embark upon a new chapter of evangelization marked by this joy, while pointing out new paths for the church's journey in years to come.
So this first article, this first paragraph of Evangelii Gaudium has 4 sentences. And every one of them is worth comment, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to talk about every one of the 4 sentences that make up this article, Article 1 in the document. So he begins, the joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. So the joy of the gospel, that's the name of the document. We've mentioned this before. The Latin, Evangelii Gaudium, is Latin for the gospel's joy.
Okay.
So the Latin title always comes from the first words in the official Latin edition of the text. So whatever the rest of the opening sentence is in the Latin edition of this document, the first 2 words are Evangelii Gaudium.
Right.
And it goes on from there. So, but again, the content of the first sentence, the joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. Renae, bear with me for a second, okay?
Okay. Don't I do that the whole time?
Pretty much. Keep persevering. It's fall.
Yes.
We're almost to October. Do you know what one of my favorite
We're
growing
in
up?
October.
We're almost to Halloween.
Yes.
Do you know what one of my favorite of the Halloween specials growing up as a child in the 80s was?
Was it the Peanuts?
Yes. Charlie
Brown?
Brown, whatever. I love
Charlie Brown Halloween.
His Halloween and the Christmas ones in particular. There were other, I think, Peanuts specials.
Yeah.
But those 2 in particular. I still have on DVR the Charlie Brown Christmas special.
Well, you didn't say videotape, so good job.
Right? I still rewatch the Charlie Brown Christmas special every year. That's a couple months down the road.
Yeah.
The Halloween special. Now,
I don't remember that one that much.
it's really good.
Okay. I'm going to trust you on that.
You will. You should. Tell me, though, in all of the Charlie Brown TV specials, can you remember the words spoken by Charlie Brown's teacher?
Wah, 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 wah.
Excellent recall. Wah, 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 wah. The joy of it. Wah, 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 wah. With church documents, so often we go into Charlie Brown student mode.
Oh.
Wah, 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 wah. Pope, okay, yes, I love you, the Holy Father. Wah, 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 wah. Don't do that.
Okay. Pay attention.
The joy, it's more than pay attention. Like seriously, like pay attention.
Okay.
The joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. Renae, we're going to get a little personal.
Okay.
Is your heart and your life filled with the joy of the gospel?
Oh, probably not. Not completely.
Not enough.
Yeah.
Not completely.
Yeah.
Right? We read that sentence for us as Catholic Christians. Any Christian could agree with this thing. On the one hand, this is oh my gosh, like I think especially for an outsider, a non-Christian, this is the Holy Father saying that the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ, should fill our lives, our hearts with joy, a particular kind of joy, to go with joy, but it should fill our lives, our hearts with joy. We should not be, so St. Teresa of Avila, one of her prayers to the Lord was, Lord, save me from gloomy saints.
Oh, yeah.
Save me from dour-faced Christians.
Yep.
Now, I've said many times, that doesn't mean that we're going to be happy, happy, joy, joy, Barney Christians. But there should be, it's not a matter, like it's not a superficial thing. This joy is a deep-seated thing. Just like authentic Christian peace is a deep-seated thing. Whatever my emotional state, I can be angry and full of Christian peace.
Right.
I can be sad and full of Christian joy. But that's what I'm called to be. So the other side of that is, this is convicting. Is this true for me? Is it a doctor, somebody who holds a doctorate in sacred theology, who his professional purpose is to help others draw closer to Jesus Christ themselves and help others to do the same? Is that true of me? Does the joy of the gospel fill my heart? Does it fill my life? No. Now, have I encountered Jesus Christ? Yes. Am I in relationship with him? Yes. Do I seek ever more, every day, to deepen that relationship? Yes. But I've got a long way to go.
Right.
But the thing I want to emphasize is that this is the fruit of an encounter with Jesus Christ.
Right. We don't come about it by ourselves.
We do not come about it by ourselves. I can't make this. Yes, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. I can't manufacture Christian joy by myself. It's the fruit of an encounter with him, and I don't initiate that encounter.
Right.
I don't initiate. He initiates it. Now, he does that for every one of us. Nobody should be, how come Jesus didn't pick me? How come he didn't meet me? How come he didn't? No. He seeks to encounter everyone. But a relationship is a two-way street.
Right.
Am I looking for him? Am I paying attention?
It reminds me of the image of Jesus knocking on a door, but there's no knob on the outside for him to open the door.
I have to open the door.
He's knocking.
He knocks, but I have to open it.
Yeah.
So there's that, I got a ways to go. Fills, not full yet. But again, the positive side of it, this is the fruit of an encounter with Jesus Christ, joy.
Okay.
Those who accept his offer of salvation are set free from, this is I love talking about this sentence. Most people, most Christians, I would say, even those who are not regular churchgoers, and frankly, I would say in our country, just because Christianity is still kind of the part of the cultural air that we breathe, I'd say even like people who aren't really religious, they've heard the term sin.
Right.
And they probably have some idea that Christians believe that Jesus saves us from our sin. Like sin is when I do something bad or something, and somehow Jesus saves. Christians believe that Jesus saves people from sin. We've heard that before. What I love about what Pope Francis does here in line 2 of his exhortation, The Joy of the Gospel, is he talks about how, again, the opening, those who accept Jesus' offer of salvation are set free from, then he says sin, but then he names 3 consequences of sin that I don't think people really realize Jesus wants to free us from as well.
Right.
So those who accept his offer of salvation are set free from sin, and then he goes on to say sorrow, inner emptiness, and loneliness. This is not just one of the really misperceptions of Christianity, at least of Catholic Christianity, is that this is just about pie in the sky when you die.
Right.
That is, I mean, not literal pie, but it rhymes. You've heard that before.
I have not.
What? Elise, have you heard?
No.
What?
I mean,
Lovely ladies, you need to get out more.
At night?
That's a call out
That's
to
me.
an upcoming
Sorry.
episode of Biblical Bites with Dr. B,
Yes, it is.
Inside Baseball. It's not just about the eternal reward. That is the greatest thing. But there's even an implication in my life today. When I am in real relationship with Jesus Christ, again, he's offering it. He's knocking. He's knocking, always knocking. When I open the door and desire to enter into relationship and have a growing relationship with him, then he will set me free from my sins. So I try to get to confession on about a monthly basis. My venial sins, I try to confess them on an even more regular basis. Jesus saved me from my sins. He did, and he has mercy on us, right? He's always, when we're repentant, he always wants to bestow his mercy, either the sacrament of reconciliation or, in the case of venial sins, directly. He always wants to offer that forgiveness. But here the Holy Father reminds us that it's not just the sin per se, but also the consequences, the implications of sin. And again, Pope Francis names 3 of them. Those 3, once again, Renae, are what? Sorrow,
Inner emptiness, and loneliness.
Yeah, and especially the second 2.
Yeah.
Numbers 2 and 3 are the things that Renae, we're not going to get much further than Article 1 here
Oh,
today.
I'm so shocked.
Are the ones that I want to highlight. Those who accept Jesus' offer of salvation are set free from inner emptiness and loneliness. Jesus wants to free every one of us from inner emptiness. And in our culture today, there are,
Those are epidemics.
right. And these days, you got to watch it with that word. No. They are actually,
Yes.
they are most definitely, even at the psychological level, like in terms of the sciences, they're by some considered epidemics in the most formal scientific sense.
In fact, the Surgeon General of the U.S. just declared loneliness one of them, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you hear inner emptiness, Renae, what does inner emptiness say to you?
Gosh, that's never tried to define that. You just don't have any joy. You don't have any maybe love for other people.
Yeah, my life is empty.
Yeah, you don't have any purpose there. Purpose.
That's the key.
Yeah.
I think that's what I want to focus on at least. No direction in life because why am I here?
Yeah.
Why do I exist? Now, our culture, with all the distractions that are available to us, it's possible for us to sort of avoid that question. But but every one of us, what am I for? Every one of us, somewhere in our hearts, is asking that question. Now we might drown out that question that we ask ourselves with all these distractions, good distractions and bad distractions. But that's a question that every one of us asks.
Yeah.
The Holy Father tells it. And so when we're honest with ourselves, when we're quiet, the silence can become, for many people, unbearable because this question just gnaws at us.
Right.
What is my purpose? I have no idea. But this is where we literally have good news. We have glad tidings. Jesus Christ sets us free from inner emptiness because he does it so much in the moment, at this point in my life. It's not that he gives me a purpose now. He reveals to me the purpose for which he originally created me to be. God created the first moment of our existence. Every one of us has been given a purpose. There is a plan for my life, a plan that if I live it out gives me incredible joy, consolation, peace, and purpose because it gives me a purpose. So there's a lot. So when we have an encounter, a real encounter, not a passing, but a real encounter with Jesus Christ, he offers us freedom from inner emptiness. He helps us to recognize the purpose for which we exist. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: it doesn't matter how old you are when you have this encounter. It's not like, oh, okay, maybe there's regrets and, oh, I should have known this sooner. But Jesus wants us to look to the now and what he desires for you for the rest of your life.
Right.
You might be on your deathbed when you realize this. It doesn't matter. The remaining weeks, days, hours, minutes of your life now have a purpose, or you recognize the purpose for your existence.
Right.
And you're able, even if it's just for a little bit, to live that out. And in so doing, we are freed from inner emptiness.
Yeah. I would not recommend waiting until the last minute if you can help it.
No, because
don't wait around.
we don't want, but he wants to free that from you now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the other one, loneliness.
Yes.
As you said, literally called by the Surgeon General of the United States of America an epidemic in our country. Especially, I think this was exacerbated by COVID, but it was already there before COVID.
Yes.
I've been talking about this for years now. We have all sorts of social media followers and friends, but do we have authentic relationships?
Yeah, they're not real friends.
Those are not real friends.
They're acquaintances, maybe.
You don't live life with, they might be acquaintances.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm not living life. I'm not sharing life with them.
Right.
And
well, not real life. No matter how much stuff you're sharing on Facebook, that's not real life most of the time.
Yes.
Right.
So, Jesus wants to free us from that.
Yeah.
Because even if you are literally alone, he desires a relationship with you. Mm-hmm. He desires a relationship with you. So it's not, okay. The most important thing that Jesus frees us from is sin. But he frees us from the consequences and implications of sin as well. Mm-hmm. Things like, not limited to, but like sorrow, emptiness, and loneliness. He goes on, sentence 3. Renee's looking at the clock like, seriously, Bergwald. With Christ, with Jesus, joy is constantly born anew. So when I live a life in which I am on a regular basis, so daily basis, trying to deepen my relationship with Jesus, spending time with him in personal prayer, seeking to live in him throughout my day, being attentive to his promptings. When I live that way, and this will increase over the course of time, but joy is constantly born anew. Mm-hmm. And Renae, who does not want to live that way?
I don't know.
Nobody.
No, nobody.
Amen. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Ignition. We might do no more next week. We'll see.
Okay.
But again, if you have questions about today's episode or ideas for future ones, please email us ignition@sfcatholic.org. And until next time, may God bless you.